Today's lesson is Chapter 3, Lesson 4, on pages 175 through 180. Our objective for today is I can mentally divide with multiples of 10, 100, and 1000. Vocabulary is multiple and tens. Question 1. What is one way you can divide by a multiple of 10, 100, or 1000? Question 2. What is 240 divided by 30? Okay, we're going to take a look at this Prezi that's going to help us think of how we can divide by multiples of 10, 100, and 1000 in our heads. Okay, so if we look at this problem, 221,000 divided by 100, let's look at these patterns. So if we start with 221,000 divided by 1, we know it's just going to be 221,000. Then if we put a 0 on there and it's a 10, so the first multiple of 10, 221,000 divided by 10, it's 22,100. Then if we divide it by 100, so there's another 0 on our divisor, then we have 221,000 divided by 100, and we get 2,210. And then if we divide by 1,000, so again, another 0, 221,000 divided by 1,000 is just 221. So what do you notice about this pattern? If we're looking at the pattern, every time there's an additional 0 put on to our multiple of 10, a 0 goes away in our quotient or our answer. So if we're looking at this first one here, there's one less 0 because we kind of crossed off those zeros. So our answer became 22,100. And same here, we crossed off 2 zeros with our answer. 2,210. So look at those patterns. Okay, so another way is you can use basic facts. So if we have the problem 16,000 divided by 8, we can first look at the problem without zeros. We can ignore those zeros. So let's just look at 16 divided by 8. Well, we know that's 2. So then you can look at that pattern again. So what if it was 160 divided by 8? Well, then we can just ignore that 0 for a second. 16 divided by 8, and it's 2, and we can put that 0 back on at the end, just like you did when you were doing multiplying with numbers of 10 or 100. So same thing with 1,600 divided by 8. We can ignore those 2 zeros really quick and look at that basic fact, 16 divided by 8, and those 2 zeros go on the end, 200. And same thing with 16,000 divided by 8. So 16 divided by 8 we know is 2, and there was 3 zeros, that 1,000 was left, so it's 2,000. So let's look here really quick. Okay, so if the dividend ends in zeros, you can just pretend they aren't there. So do the simple division and write those zeros at the end. So that's what I was talking about. So here's the dividend, it ends in zeros, it ends in the thousands multiple. And we can just ignore those for now. So 16 divided by 8, do that basic fact first, and then add those 3 zeros that you started with on at the end. So if you have dividends and divisors that end in zeros, you can line up the digits by place value and cross off the zeros to make it easier. So let's say we're starting with 28,000 divided by 7,000. So we can cross off the zeros. Let's see. So in this problem, each of them, the dividend and the divisor, has 3 zeros. So cross off this 0. It shows right here. We can actually cross off all the zeros in this because they have an equal amount. If it was different, if it was 28,000 divided by 700, we could cross off 2 zeros, and then it would be 280 divided by 70. So just remember that. So this is just a reminder that they wrote it this way, the fraction's the way of writing the division problem. So since in this case there was 3 zeros and we crossed them all off, now the problem is just 28 divided by 7. So we can do that in our head. Okay, so let's take a look at this in our textbook. I'm on page 175. So our first problem is 240 divided by 3. And so they are doing like I showed you in that little presentation, that we know 240 is a multiple of 10. So we can start with that basic fact and we can continue the pattern. So we know 24 divided by 3. We know that that's 8. So then if we look at 200, let me grab my pen. 240, hold on, 240 divided by 3, we know that that's equal to 8 tens, or 80. So again, I use my basic fact 24 divided by 3, and I kind of put that 0 on at the end. And same thing if it was 2,400 divided by 3. 24 divided by 3, I know that's 8. So this time it'd be 800s because we have 2 zeros there. So I put those 2 zeros on at the end, and my answer is 800. Okay, and our last pattern, 24,000 divided by 3. Again, 24 divided by 3, that's my basic fact. It's 8, so we know we have 8 thousandths because there was 3 zeros in that problem. Okay, so then you have to circle the pattern that matches the problem. So in this case, it was 240 divided by 3, which is this one. So we know our answer is 80. Okay, page 176 gives you a really good example that shows you 2 ways you can look at these type of problems. So in this problem, there is 900 pounds of hay over a 30-day period. So how many pounds of hay would they eat each day? So really we're doing 900 divided by 30. So the first way you can do this is to use a fact family. So in this case, we're using fact families of 3, 3, and 9 to help us represent this problem. So we know that 3 times 3 is 9, and that means that 9 divided by 3 is 3. So in the same way, we know, I'm going to turn the answers on, that 30 times 3 is 90. 90 divided by 30 is 3. And same thing with 30 times 30 would be 900. And so 900 divided by 30 would be 30. Because this is what we talked about earlier with multiplying digits of 10. So we know 3 times 3 is 9. We just put that 0 on the end. Same thing with dividing. Another way would be to use a pattern in the number of zeros. So you can cross out the same numbers of zeros in the dividend and in the divisor to make it easier for you. So 900 divided by 30, we can take one of those zeros away because they both have at least one 0. Then our problem becomes 90 divided by 3. So we can do that one pretty easily. You can again go to your basic facts and just do 9 divided by 3 is 3 and put that 0 on the end. Or you can probably just solve 90 divided by 3 and know that that's 30. All right, so let's look back at our questions. Question 1 I talked about on page 176. Your book shows you some really good ways you can divide, and that was also in the little presentation. So look back if you're stuck on that. And question 2, solve that one.